Overdrive today, we get you an audio-visual delight of the Porsche Cayman GT4 RS and 5 gorgeous Lamborghini sports cars. Hello and welcome to Overdrive. I am Sonita. What a magnificent lineup of cars we have for you today on this show. Now, if you have a soul, you will definitely sit up and take notice once a 4-litre naturally aspirated flat-6 Porsche Cayman GT4 RS roars past you, especially post the 9,000 RPM. It's truly a magical sports car.
You see, the Cayman sits right at the entry point of Porsche's sports car range. But this particular Cayman costs almost double the money of a standard 718, and it also sits at a higher pedestal than the 911. So what gives it those credentials? Let's find out. One glance should tell you that even the silhouette of this car is different than the standard Cayman. The swan neck hinges holding the massive spoiler, the exaggerated splitters at the front and the rear, lightened bodywork, so much so that even the Porsche logo is a decal and not a metal badge to save weight. And to that effect, even the lift function in the adaptive dampers is only for the front end. And then you get bits like the lightweight suspension with racetrack-derived spring rates, a mechanically locking rear differential, and forged wheels that house massive composite brakes. All this gives this Cayman the unique GT4 RS badge. In fact, this is the first time the RS badge sits on a Cayman. And all of that pushes the price of this car close to the 911 GT3, one of the best 911s that you can buy. And then you come to this particular car, which costs almost £1 crore more. And that's down to all the optional extras, which also includes this 7 lakh rupee shark blue paint job, which is only applied to the visible parts of the chassis or the bodywork to save weight and costs. It also has a 32 lakh rupee Vizag pack. This pack also includes plenty of carbon fiber for the front lid, the spoiler, the trims around the air intakes and the cooling ducts, and the air blades around the windows. More exotic materials continue with the titanium exhaust tips and the rear roll cage. That roll cage though is only for your track days. It cannot be converted into a full roll cage which includes the frontal section, which means should you theoretically take this car GT racing, it may not be approved by the racing bodies like the FIA GT, for example. The pack also throws in tons of badges reading Vizag, Porsche and GT4 RS to announce to the world that you have a rather special Cayman. As if that bodywork didn't already do that. But that exaggerated look, those yellow badges, they do turn up the heat, whether you're driving in the cold conditions of Europe or the hot, steaming conditions of India. Oh, and speaking of heat, this car is powered by what is perhaps the best internal combustion engine the Porsche currently builds, even in today's times of melting ice caps. The 4-litre flat-6. It's an engine with GT3 pedigree, and in the RS, it comes mated to the blisteringly quick 7-speed dual-clutch transmission. This combination helps this car sprint from 0 to 100 km an hour in 3.4 seconds, and unsurprisingly, makes this the fastest production Cayman around the Nürburgring notch line. And it is only 9 seconds slower than the 911 GT3. Compared to the GT3, the more complicated exhaust routing robs 10 horses from this car's arsenal. It neither gets a double wishbone suspension, nor does it have space to incorporate an electronic LSD. Heck, it doesn't even get rear axle steering, but its engine mounting makes up for it. So essentially, what you're getting is the stunning powertrain of a 911 GT3, mid-mounted because this is a Cayman. It's a combination that's a wet dream for a lot of Porsche fans. And then you have this combination in a chassis that's lighter and yet stiffer than the standard Cayman and even the 911 for that matter. The whole car sits 30 millimeters closer to the ground than the standard Cayman. So what you get is a car that handles far, far, far better than most other sports cars in the world, including some of Porsche's own. That 4-litre flat-6 is the creme de la creme of Porsche's internal combustion engines. Naturally aspirated, 500 PS, 450 Newton meters of torque. All these are brilliant numbers, but what's more important is how much it can rev. 9,000 RPM. So you need this razor sharp handling, not to keep the engine in check, but because this handling is the only thing that can enable you to reach that 9,000 RPM often. Oh, listen to that thing. It's pure bliss. There aren't too many driving modes either. You can choose between normal or sport modes for the suspension and the PDK gearbox, but the engine is always running at full steam. Your concentration, your senses, they get in sync with the mechanicals rather quickly. Your eyes look at the end of the tunnel created by the surroundings. Your palms and fingers are working the steering and the paddles behind it. And your foot is controlling a sonic bliss. It's like poetry in motion. It makes the other sports cars sound like a heavy metal concert in comparison. On your journey from startup to 9,000 RPM, you hear this beautiful sonic orchestra. There are the sweet low-end trills. Then you move to a lathery, smooth mid-range. And as you climb up the revs, you get to this high-pitched opera. And that last 1,000 RPM, oh my God. It's something else. Unlike many sports cars, what they hear outside is what you hear inside. You can hear the air being sucked in through those beautiful air intakes. You can hear that transmission howl. And if you listen carefully, sometimes you can also hear the walls inside the exhaust flutter. Oh, what a feeling. What a feeling. I have driven many sports cars on these very roads. Porsches, AMGs, Lamborghinis and Ferraris even. But nothing quite comes close to the kind of feeling that this car offers. Well, the Cayman GT4 RS, quite simply, is the do-it-all sports car for me. Plenty of power, unbelievable ride and handling, plenty of emotion, and that iconic engine. Remember the dialogue from Ford versus Ferrari? 7,000 RPM, the machine becomes weightless. 9,000 RPM. That is where the machine and the man become one. That's a feeling that very few sports cars can give you. And that is why the Cayman GT4 scores so high for me. Porsche isn't limiting the number of GT4 RSs that they will build, but they are certainly limiting the time for which they'll continue building it. And the next gen Cayman is likely to be all electric. So there may not be anything like the GT4 RS after this. It's a collector's item in that sense, and one of the best Porsches that you can buy today.
While all sports cars tend to shake us up quite a bit, it's the Porsches that seem to have a very special effect on the Overdrive team. We'll take a very quick break here on the show, but coming up on the other side, we'll take you through the awe-inspiring generation of Lamborghinis as we join in on an exclusive anniversary celebration. Welcome back here with us on Overdrive. It's been 60 years since Ferruccio Lamborghini founded the very famous sports car company Lamborghini, which has given us plenty of horses and awe-inspiring sports cars to lust after. Now, Bird was invited exclusively to participate in the anniversary celebrations in Bologna, and he managed to drive 5 of the cars that he could only dream of.
Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that I'd get an opportunity to drive Lamborghini's Countach. Keep in mind, this is one of those hyper cars of another generation, considerably analog, but still with some electronic aids for comfort and convenience. Most of everything else in this car, well, it's just pure manual. I'm nervous, I'm scared, because this is a very expensive car and I haven't driven something this epic in ages. But to me, this is a fairly emotional moment. I've been requesting Lamborghini for nearly 2 decades, and it's finally here. An opportunity to drive some of the most significant V12 powered cars in Lamborghini's history. This is epic on another scale entirely. Keep in mind, everything is manual. This is the LP400 I'm driving. It's got a manual 5-speed transmission, the steering is manual. It's got 3 pedals. This isn't a modern day automatic hypercar or supercar that Lamborghini makes. This comes from an entirely different generation. And the nice thing is, you can see where that whole aggressive nature of Lamborghini stems from. It's cars like the Countach that set the tone for all of their modern day supercars. And that aggression hasn't dimmed down at all. This isn't an easy car to drive. Keep in mind, we're so used to driving automatics these days. Getting a hold of a manual that puts out this amount of power, where you have got to control almost everything. People just stare at you with their mouths wide open. Fairly exciting car to drive. My mouth's gone dry. My heart's pounding. It's such an incredible car. Everywhere you go with the Countach. The Miura, as you know it, was effectively the car that put Lamborghini on the map. And to think that Ferruccio Lamborghini, well, may not have necessarily wanted this car. But it was Sanzani, Gandini, Bob Wallace who wanted to build a car that could reflect all the racing that was taking place around Italy at the time. And they did develop the Miura, and Ferruccio Lamborghini signed off on the car and allowed it to get into production. And the rest, as I say, is history. It's hard to believe that something like this was developed way back in 1960s, mid-engine V12 with a 5-speed manual transmission. Driving these cars is a very different experience because keep in mind, these aren't fuel injected, they're carbureted. And you have to keep the throttle on the boil for those carburetors to work. 12 cylinders of intoxication. I can smell the fuel. I can hear the engine. It's right behind my head. It's hard to believe this thing was built in the 60s. And as you can see, I'm really reaching out for the steering wheel here because this car was developed as a racing car. Though it eventually went into series production. And it's such a gorgeous shape. Right in front of your eyes, all you can see are these 2 big pontoon-shaped fenders. Let me tell you, it's not easy driving these things. But I've just driven the Countach, and the Miura just seems so much nicer, so much easier. You know what's amazing me is that the ride quality on this car is just so magnificent. And today, nearly 70 years after this car was made, it boggles my mind to think just where is Lamborghini headed. I must look stupid because I just can't stop grinning. The car I'm driving just now, well, there's just one word to describe it: exquisite. I'm quite surprised why Lamborghini kind of moved away from the Grand Tourer classifications, went more aggressive with their sports cars and hypercars. Because the 400 GT that I'm driving just now is probably one of the grandest cars I've ever driven. Now, the 400 GT was the second car that Lamborghini introduced to the market. It followed the 350 GT, but continued with more or less the same mechanicals, the same V12 powertrain, the 3.9 litre V12, but was a better car than the 350 GT. 400 GT is perhaps everything Ferruccio Lamborghini wanted from his cars. It was comfortable and it was fast and powerful, quite unlike modern day Lamborghinis, which are aggressive but fast and powerful. It's hard to imagine something this exquisite was built almost 80 years ago. It had a short production run. It went into production in 1966 and production discontinued in 1968. Roughly about 240 odd units were built of the 400 GT. And today these cars are priceless. But price aside, I'm quite astonished by the elegance, the superb engineering that went into a car of this order way back in the 60s. This is such an effortless car to drive. I could do this day in and day out. We've come down a very, very fast patch of tarmac. Of course, now this is far more twisty. The ride quality, the steering, the response from the engine is just magnificent. We were just barreling down a motorway a few minutes ago, and the 400 GT, well, I clocked about 160 kilometers an hour, and it felt like a Sunday. Smooth, easy, effortless. My God, this car is a gem.
Life sure seems great when you can tame all these powerful horses under Lamborghinis, doesn't it? Well, there's more where that came from. We'll take a very quick break here on the show, but coming up on the other side, we will get back to all the anniversary celebrations from Bologna. Stay with us, you're watching Overdrive. Welcome back here with us on Overdrive. It's hard to imagine that Lamborghinis were built with manual gearboxes, right? Because we're so used to driving only the automatic transmissions of the new generation bulls. Well, there's way more from that celebration back in Bologna. Here's Bert with more.
And now in the Murcielago, and this car was a significant car in Lamborghini's history again, because it marked the transition for Lamborghini from analog to, well, sort of electronically controlled cars. The Murcielago represented several firsts for Lamborghini. It was the first supercar to be developed in-house at Lamborghini's new facility, the Centro Stile. It was the first to have offered automatic transmission. It was the first to have a selectable reverse gear by pressing a button. It was the first Lamborghini to offer electronically adjustable suspension. It was the first Lamborghini to offer safety aids like traction control and ESC. It was the first Lamborghini to offer several new firsts, and in that way it became a huge milestone for Lamborghini. This has to be one of the most epic sounding cars I've driven all of today. Just listen to this. And it revs all the way up to 8,500 RPM, which is just incredible. Can you drive a Lamborghini and not think about the million ways you could go and make money to buy you one? If there was ever a day that felt completely satisfying, this would be it. After all those gorgeous Lamborghinis, those classic V12s, I now find myself in the Aventador. And this car is significant for one reason. It is the last of the naturally aspirated V12s. The Aventador is the most modern V12 that Lamborghini has built. And it spells all the aggression, all the ferocity, all the pace and the might of Lamborghini's magnificent V12s they've ever developed. The Aventador's V12 is still very much based on the original V12 design. This cabin and its design with its aircraft's cockpit-like controls, well, the design, it traces its origins back to the Countach, much like several other aspects of this car. And that is one of the aspects of Lamborghini's cars that I've truly enjoyed today. You see a continuity of all that Lamborghini has developed in each and every car over nearly 5 decades. Ever since Lamborghini began operations way back in the 60s, 1963, with the 350 GT and subsequently the 400 GT and several of its V12 powered cars, each of them has been capable of ridiculous speeds for their time. The 400 GT that I drove today, speeds in excess of 200 kilometers an hour. Keep in mind, this was way back in the 60s, 200 kilometers an hour back then on those single ply tires. And now down to the Aventador, 300 kilometers plus in the blink of an eye. So of the 5 cars that I've driven today, which one would be my favorite? Well, that would be akin to asking me to pick my favorite child. You can't pick one. I'd pick them all.
The sweet life of an automotive journalist. Of course, there are plenty of hours that we spend waiting at airports and the long flights, and you're extremely tired at very odd hours, but all of it, when it leads to such sweet rides, definitely makes all of the travel worth it. It's time for us to wrap up this week's edition of Overdrive, but remember, stay in touch with us through Facebook, Twitter as well as YouTube. Until next week then, drive and ride safe.